Hello, everybody. This is Carol Maletta. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. Hello, lovely listeners. Today we have a special episode that is close to my heart. Joining us is Dr. Maureen Michele, an extraordinary individual whose journey intertwines the roles of physician, life coach, and a loving parent. Dr. Maureen is a seasonal pediatrician and allergist immunologist who has dedicated her career to caring for children with a variety of health challenges. But what makes her story even more compelling is her personal experience as the mother of a child with chronic health challenges. She's here to share her insights from her book, Reclaiming Life, a guide for parents of chronically ill children, and to offer invaluable advice on navigating the complexities of raising a child with a chronic condition. Whether it's understanding vulnerable child syndrome, fostering resilience, or managing our own overwhelming emotions as parents, Dr. Maureen is here to guide us through all of it. So why don't we settle in and learn together how to reclaim the joy and fulfillment in our parenting journey. Welcome, Dr. Maureen.
Thank you so much. That was a beautiful introduction. I appreciate those kind words.
Well, I'm talking about you, so you deserve it. Uh, so let's start off with you just sharing with us what inspired you to embark on this journey of helping parents with chronically ill children, because I don't know if this was your specialty in medical school, if this is what you envisioned doing. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, so I will tell you that, when I was a kid, I really had two big dreams, the dream of being a doctor and the dream of being a mom. And I can even remember, corralling the neighborhood kids to play healthcare provider and
Oh.
dispensing little candy as their medicine to make them better. Um, as I got older, I was very blessed and got to achieve both of those dreams.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in my second year of my pediatric residency, my second child was born, and several months later, when she was 6 months old,
Mm-hmm.
she was diagnosed with pediatric neuroblastoma, which is a type of pediatric cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I felt like my world had kind of caved in.
Mm.
I had taken care of patients with the same type of cancer that she had. So I knew what was going to happen. And my brain was like off to the races with anticipating all of these bad things that I had seen in a variety of other patients.
Mm.
I, during that time, became very consumed with her healthcare, kind of let myself go by the wayside, and went to a very kind of dark place.
Mm.
With time, the farther we got away from her diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
things got better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I always was in this kind of constant state of worry, though. And then fast forward to when she was 12,
Mm.
I had the honor of being the physician to diagnose her with type 1 diabetes.
Mm.
And so at that time, I felt like, oh my goodness, like this is all happening again. Like, how is this possible?
Right.
And I knew from my previous experience of what she went through in her kind of cancer journey as an infant
Mm-hmm.
that I needed to be more proactive about my own emotional health
Mm-hmm.
because there's no cure for type 1 diabetes.
Right.
And I knew it was going to be a life-changing thing, not only for her,
Mm-hmm.
but for us as a family,
Mm-hmm.
and needed to figure out how to be more proactive in keeping myself emotionally healthy to be able to be the best parent I could be for her. I listened to books and podcasts, and I read books and listened to podcasts, and the and hired a coach to help realize the power in all of that.
Okay.
Then years later, I had a leadership position at the hospital where I was working and wanted to hone mentorship skills. So became a certified life coach to help with mentorship. Quickly realized, though, about how powerful all of the tools were with helping my patients in clinic, and felt like I could make their journey with their child a little bit easier than the journey I had been on. And that's kind of how I got to where I am today.
Wow. First of all, I just admire how you were able to use that experience and and to not minimize it, even though years have gone by, it was challenging. And for you to come out on the other side and really be able to find purpose in it and a way to serve others with it. I know that the
Yeah.
work that you do is a blessing to family.
And,
I can only
you know,
imagine.
yeah. And I think that is one big thing I want your audience to understand, that we all have challenges in our lives, right?
Mhm,
Whether it's a child is sick or has a chronic illness, or whether it's a financial difficulty or a career problem or a problem with a family member, like all of these challenges are a part of life.
mhm,
And we have the opportunity to choose how we're going to react to all of these challenges.
mhm,
And I teach the folks that I take care of about taking a challenge and either like curling up into a ball and hiding in the corner and hoping it's going to go away quickly
mhm,
and allow life to happen to you.
mhm,
Or you have the choice of saying, you know what, I'm going to take this challenge and turn it into a gift some
mhm,
way, somehow, and have the belief that life is happening for you. And I have kind of chosen that second path, which I would say, at the time, yeah,
mhm.
it's hard to figure out, how is this challenge a gift? Like, my
Right.
kid just got diagnosed with cancer, and my kid just got diagnosed with this chronic illness that has no cure. How is this ever going to be a gift? But having that belief that you
Mhm.
can turn it into a gift is so powerful, because eventually it will turn into a gift if you really hold on to that belief.
Mhm, mhm. I couldn't agree more. And now, parenting is a tough job, and it can be even tougher when you add the health concerns, whether it's your own or that of a child or loved one that you're caring for. So, what would you say would be your top self-care tips for parents in this type of situation? We'll be right back after this. If you're looking to reach a massive audience of parents and caregivers, then look no further than ProPix by the Parenting 411, the ultimate marketing program designed to skyrocket your brand to new heights. With ProPix, we've created 3 incredible packages to suit your marketing needs and budget. So let's take a look. First up is our social starter package. You'll receive a stunning graphic promo piece, plus we'll also feature your brand on the Parenting 411 Instagram page. It's the perfect way to make a memorable first impression and get parents buzzing about your business. Now, if you're ready to level up, our Parenting Pro package is where it's at. You'll enjoy all the benefits of the social starter package, plus more awesome benefits, including exposure on the Parenting 411 podcast, which reaches parents in more than 22 countries each week. But wait, There's more. For those seeking the pinnacle of marketing power, our Elite Exposure package is the way to go. You'll get even more exposure across our platform, including thousands of followers and connections on LinkedIn. Get ready to dominate the airwaves and establish yourself as the go-to resource for families everywhere. Take advantage of Pro Picks by the Parenting 411 today and unlock unparalleled marketing opportunities for your business. But I should tell you that prices are set to increase on November 1st, so act now. Pro Picks by the Parenting 411 is your passport to the hearts and minds of parents. Visit ProPicksbyP411.com. Join us today and watch the magic happen. And we're back with the Parenting 411.
When I mentioned self-care to some people, they always say to me, like, I don't have time for that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time to have a day at the spa. And you know what? Like, I love myself a good spa day, but that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about self-care. That
Mm-hmm.
self-care is really paying attention to your emotions and the thoughts that are leading to those emotions. But that does take a little bit of practice and dedicated time. It's not an absorbent amount of time, but it's making yourself a priority, which when you're taking care of a chronically ill kid is a necessity because, like I explained in my story, that I knew I didn't want to go back to that dark place
Mm-hmm.
where I wasn't my best for
Mm-hmm.
my child. So taking care of yourself allows you to be at your best. And that kind of looks like carving out just a few minutes of your morning to spend time meditating or to
Mm-hmm.
spend time journaling. Just getting your thoughts down on paper
Mm-hmm.
is a very powerful tool that we often don't take advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be a huge step to really understanding what's going on in your mind and
Mm-hmm.
understanding how you're feeling.
Right, right. And I think we need to talk about something that's important that happens really kind of right up front when you have a diagnosis. And that really is like the loss of what you thought your child's life was going to be, and fear of any limitations that are going to come with it. You don't even know. I mean, the children are young, you don't even know. But how can parents navigate that grief and push past and care for the child that
Yeah.
needs the support, and which we'll dive into in a moment.
Yeah. And you bring up an excellent point. You use the word grief, and that's really what a parent goes through
Mhm.
when their child gets diagnosed with some sort of condition that's going to change that child's life,
Mhm.
because a parent is really grieving this loss of this life that they had anticipated for their child.
Mhm.
And the thing that I want parents to understand is that grieving process that we all have heard about in a true like loss of a family member that or a friend.
Mhm.
The same emotions and stages a parent goes through, understanding that is so valuable,
Mhm.
because oftentimes parents who are going through those stages feel
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be feeling this way,
Mm.
or I feel like I'm by myself
Mhm.
in this process.
Right.
So it's the understanding that no, this grieving process is normal. Go with it. And you're not alone in it. This is what every parent kind of goes through when their child has a medical condition.
Mm-hmm.
The real thing that can get somebody kind of moving through those stages
Mm-hmm.
is the realization that, you know what, this new life that my child has, I'm thinking that it's going to be worse than this life that I had anticipated for my child.
Right.
But if I consider that this new life might be even better and even more beautiful
Mm-hmm.
than what I had imagined initially, that by flipping your mind and allowing the ability to consider this beautiful new possibility, it opens up the door to allowing that process to work and
Mm-hmm.
embracing this new life that was handed to the family.
Yes, and I can certainly relate to that. My children don't have chronic diagnoses, but one was diagnosed with pervasive developmental delays, and that changed everything about what I thought parenting was going to be like. I'm the type that would want to read and learn as much as I could about parenting anyway, but to really have to dive into child development now
Hmm.
and really get a granular understanding of, you know, fine motor skills, gross motor skills, and neuro development, and all of that. It changed my journey, but I learned so much, and I was really able to bring a lot of the skills that I'd used in my professional life and academic life to it.
Yeah.
And look at me today. Like I came home from to maternity leave from corporate marketing, and like I'm obviously not doing that anymore. So, and it's very, very fulfilling, and just even watching my son overcome challenges and work through um, that's been so inspirational for me, and really, made me more attuned to the human spirit and resilience, and what all of us can do with the right support and resources, and then the mindset that we need to
Yes.
overcome challenges. So I can relate to how your journey fueled you in this way.
Yeah,
Now,
and so that,
mhm,
I mean, that is just another great example of taking this challenge that
mhm,
you had with your son and like flipping it and creating this gift out of it. Like
mhm,
it was a challenge, but the amount that you have learned from it
mhm.
and are now able to give back because of it is huge. And if we can do that and learn from the challenges in our lives, like how awesome would our life be?
Right, right. And as I said earlier, when you first get the diagnosis, you can't see that. You can't see
You
the gift
can't.
in the
Right.
moment. So let's talk about what are the essential tips for caring for a child in a with a chronic diagnosis. Because I almost think, and it was the case with me, that once I started doing the research and doing the work on figuring out what he needed day to day, that's even um, progress or work, a step toward pushing through the grief, because you're doing something. Because initially you
Yes.
feel like this thing happened, I have no control here, as if we had control anyway. But taking those steps to care for the child with a chronic
Yeah.
diagnosis can make a big difference. So what are the essential tips?
Yeah, so, I would say there's kind of three big areas that I often find myself teaching folks that I take care of. One is in the area of advocacy and
Mm,
learning how to be a great advocate for your child. Because, one of those uh, things about parenting is that, yes, we teach our child by things that we say, but we really teach our child by our actions and our
Mhm.
child watching us do those actions. So
Mhm.
allowing your child to see you advocate for them can be very powerful so that they can become an advocate for themselves if they're able to in the future.
Mhm.
And it's in that area of advocacy is learning how to build your own courage to have a voice in the healthcare provider's office, a voice
Mhm.
in the school system, a voice, in anything that your child is doing, but
Mhm.
also be a voice for yourself. The second area that I often find myself teaching is being organized.
Mhm.
And this is what you were touching on about keeping yourself kind of busy, right?
Mhm.
But organization is part of it, that it's not only organizing your physical space,
Mhm.
where, I'm with diabetes, there's lots of medical supplies that I had to get myself organized about,
Mhm.
but it's also organizing your mind and becoming organized in the thoughts that you believe so that you're not constantly consumed with this underlying fear or worry. And then the third area is finding your people. So really understanding relationships and
Mhm.
knowing that you don't have to do everything. That I, when I started this, would feel very uncomfortable with asking for help because I had this ingrained passion to be a mom.
Mhm.
And I felt like if I asked for help,
Right.
that it would meant that I was failing at this job that I wanted so desperately from the time I was a young child.
Mhm.
And it's realizing and understanding that asking for help is not weakness. Like, that's
Right.
actually strength to be able to look at your plate and understand what it means to have a full plate and know what relationships you can depend on to be able to provide help. And um, it allows you to grow, but
Mhm.
it's also finding that community where you can feel supported and give to others. Because just like what you were explaining with, your journey with your son, and now you're able to like give back and
Mhm.
teach others what it means to really parent and go through these developmental steps. That giving back now is something that allows us to fill our cup and to be able to really do an excellent job of continuing to be an exceptional parent for our child.
Mhm. Mhm. I like that. And I think I can imagine a lot of times with when parents receive a chronic diagnosis for their child, there's a sense of wondering like what the child will physically be able to do. Um, so there's kind of the vulnerable child syndrome. Can you talk about that and how it affects families?
Yeah, and so, vulnerable child syndrome, I would say the easiest way to understand it is, and I saw a cartoon recently that depicted this, is it's taking the child and wrapping them in bubble wrap. And I think that visual is such a good visualization to understand vulnerable child syndrome. It is us as parents receiving this diagnosis and wanting to protect our child to the point where it becomes unhealthy.
Yes.
Unhealthy for us as a parent and unhealthy for the child too,
Mm-hmm.
because our children, in order to grow and develop and reach whatever they're going to do in the world, means that we can't wrap them in bubble wrap. So when you wrap your child in bubble wrap, they're not allowed to experience the challenges of life. And challenges are important for personal growth. It is ensuring that we as parents allow the opportunity for growth,
Mm-hmm.
which means we need to accept the possibility of failure. Failure sounds like this kind of nasty word, and we all kind of get cringy about, oh my gosh, I can't fail, I can't fail. But if we reframe that and understand that failure is just a piece of data, it
Mm-hmm.
makes it a little bit lighter and easier to accept that failure doesn't need to be negative. It just needs to be looked at as data to teach us
Mm-hmm.
that the way we did something maybe wasn't the best way, and we need to figure out another way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we don't wrap our kids in bubble wrap, that we allow them to be able to have that same experience through failures.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So another concept that I've heard you talk about is ghosts in the nursery. Could you elaborate on what you mean there? Because I can certainly imagine how that has an impact on relationships and how you relate to the child who has the chronic um, condition.
Yeah. And so, that phrase ghosts in the nurseries just means kind of the same thing as skeletons in the closet, right? That we all, as humans, have a past that
Mm,
we have lived through.
okay.
And this past can come back over and over again
Hmm.
because of the stories that we play in our mind. And those stories can really focus on negative things. So the with parenting, sometimes we have lived through uh, as children our own parents
Hmm.
who we have a story about that in our minds,
Hmm.
and it may be a not so good story, but we find ourselves from not processing the emotions that go with it.
Hmm.
We find ourselves repressing those emotions. And
Right.
when you repress those emotions, they come back in unexpected ways.
Hmm.
I often kind of relate it to the analogy of taking a beach ball and you put a beach ball underwater and you're holding it there.
All right.
And eventually, if you let go of the beach ball, it's going to come flying up in the air.
Mm.
And that is such a great way to picture what can happen if we don't process emotions.
Hmm.
So, really, it becomes even more important as a parent to understand ourselves and not forget our past, but make peace with it and understand the emotions that we have felt in the past and
Hmm.
kind of rewrite the stories in our mind in a way where we can focus on the things that are positive that we can be grateful for, things
Mhm.
that we learned about that we can really have as the recurring film that goes on in our minds.
Mhm. And I think really getting in touch with those emotions and working through them the way you just described can also help reduce that feeling of just overwhelm that
Oh, for
parents
sure.
feel in this situation, both from maybe the physical work that they need to do, but also all of these all of the thoughts, the movie that's playing in their heads from, past experiences and all of that. So can you talk about the thoughts that can contribute to the overwhelm?
Yeah, of course.
We'll be right back after this. Are you a parent looking to unlock your potential in raising confident, capable, and courageous children? Well, look no further. Join us at the upcoming Parent and Purpose Summit Back to School Edition, where parenting experts from around the world will come together to share their wisdom and insights. I'm Carol Maletta, founder of the Parenting 411. This summit is your opportunity to gain essential skills and tools to become the parent you've always aspired to be. Over 5 incredible days, we'll dive deep into topics like positive discipline, effective communication, mental health, self-care, school readiness, and more. An attendee from our last summit told us, "This summit changed my parenting game. I feel more confident and connected with my children than ever before." So secure your seat at the Parent and Purpose Summit today. Visit parentandpurposesummit2023.com. That's Parent and Purpose Summit 2023.com. And click the registration button to join us on this transformative journey. The Parent and Purpose Summit, where intentional parenting begins. And we're back with the Parenting 411.
There's kind of four different groups of thoughts that I often talk about. And, I want your audience to understand that thoughts that go on in our mind, and our mind produces a lot of different thoughts in the day. Some are helpful and some are not. But thoughts create emotions, and
Mhm.
emotions generate our actions. And
Mhm.
sometimes those actions are really inactions or avoidance.
Okay.
Those actions then go on to give us results in our lives. And so, if we understand our thoughts, we can understand the results that we have in our lives, and we
Mhm.
can influence those results. So, the four areas of thoughts, though, that can really kind of create this experience of being overwhelmed. The first is all or nothing thoughts. And this
Mm.
is really that if we have a lot of things on our plate, especially when it comes to a chronically ill kid, that there's lots of appointments and follow up visits and specialists involved and school involved, that we look at all of that and think, oh my gosh, like I can't manage all of this. And
Right.
so it becomes this, well, if I can't do it all, I can't do anything.
Mhm.
And it creates this overwhelm where then you don't do anything.
Mhm.
Um, if we shift it and just focus on the next appointment,
Right.
that becomes a more healthy way of thinking that influences our emotions, that can influence our actions. The the second type of thought is perfectionist thoughts.
Mm.
um, the thought of, well, if I didn't do it perfectly, then it was for nothing. It's not obtainable, the goal that I have set in my mind. And so it really, with perfectionist thoughts, it's kind of having this expectation, and you're comparing yourself to this idealistic expectation
Mm-hmm.
rather than allowing yourself to kind of be present with the data that you have in the present time
Mm-hmm.
and know that getting to a goal means taking small steps. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It
Right.
means you need to continue to make progress towards something.
Mm-hmm. That's key, the progress. Mm-hmm.
Yes. The third area is should thoughts. So things like, I should be able to handle a kid with chemo and a toddler. And having anytime your brain uses this should,
Mm-hmm.
it's again setting an expectation that you're comparing your reality to this made up expectation, and
Mm-hmm.
comparison gets us into trouble sometimes.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
fourth thought is people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's doing things not because we believe it's the best for us, but
Mm-hmm.
it's becoming overwhelmed because you're trying to please others
Mm-hmm.
and having these thoughts that you need to do something because somebody else is expecting you to do it. So again, it goes back to this comparison and expectation setting that is creating this experience of being overwhelmed.
Yes, and that last part can really, really drag you down. Uh,
Absolutely.
because you always have people on the sidelines that will tell you that this is what I would do, or this is what you should do, and or they want you to manage things in your family based on what they need from you.
Yes. Yeah. And
So I've
it
experienced that.
yeah. And it really, to get out of that people pleasing, is
Mhm.
really this understanding that when you do something for another person that you may not have done because without their kind of influence on you, you're
Mhm.
really disappointing yourself.
Mm.
And but if you have that influence from the other individual and you decide, you know what, I'm not going to do that. Um, you may be disappointing the other individual,
Right.
but you don't live with the other individual every single day. You live with
Exactly.
yourself every day. So who would you rather please, yourself,
Exactly.
or that you live with on a daily basis, or somebody else where you may see once every couple months?
Right.
And really understanding that can get you out of being a people pleaser.
Right, right. And you talked a little bit earlier about advocacy, which you were talking about it in terms of advocacy for your child, but this is self advocacy. And then indirectly, it is for your child because that's where your focus is, yeah, and on your family. And so that's why you're not able to do whatever it is that
Yeah.
the people on the outside want
Yeah.
you to do. And so I do want to circle back to that advocacy piece because that is so important, both for yourself and very significantly for your child. So, can you discuss? I know you have 4 C's and how parents can advocate more effectively for their children.
Yeah. And when we think about the word advocacy, a word that pops into mind is often this argument. And I just want to say up front that advocating for your child or for yourself does not need to be an argument. So let that thought go, because having that belief um, uh, makes someone go into a discussion with like battle armor on and
Mhm.
ready to like attack. And if we understand that advocacy is really just having a voice and it being a discussion,
Mhm.
again, that's a lighter belief that you go into it with a more kind of open focus where you're hearing another person, but
Mhm.
you're also allowing yourself to be heard. And so those 4 C's that I talk about are, the first is consciousness and being aware of your own thoughts that we've talked about a couple of times now, but that consciousness will allow you to be prepared for a medical appointment or be prepared for a school appointment. Um, and knowing ahead of time what your mind is telling you is important, because if you go into it, like I said, that this is going to be an argument,
Mhm.
that thought creates an emotion that drives you to this action of this, like you're on the aggressive.
Mhm.
And we want to be conscious of what our brain is telling us, to be prepared to go into it in an open, calm state of mind. The second C is curiosity. So it's looking at the thoughts
Mhm.
of, this is going to be an argument, and asking yourself, like, why do I think it's going to be an argument? And really getting curious where that belief comes from and
Mhm.
questioning that belief. Do I really think this is true? Could I consider another possibility? And so
Mhm.
asking questions around a thought is really helpful for preparing to be a good advocate.
Mhm.
Then the next C's are courage and
Mhm.
commitment.
Yes.
Um, Courage is the understanding that you want to change, you want to be a courageous advocate for your child. And commitment is taking the step to make that change
Mhm.
and committing to that goal, because all of the things that we've talked about today, the grief, advocacy, self-care, like these things don't change overnight. I can talk about them pretty freely now because I've had years of experience with it.
Mhm.
But somebody who is just starting on wanting to make a change, it's making that commitment and taking that first step. And if you take that first step and you keep practicing, it gets a little bit easier. And it's the same thing if we think about picking up a brand new musical instrument. When we first try to practice it, it is wonky, it's hard,
Mhm.
but when we commit to it and we keep practicing and keep practicing, it becomes easier. And before we know it, we're playing like beautiful music from it. The
Right.
same thing can happen when we practice consciousness, curiosity, have courage, and make a commitment to change.
Hmm. Well, that really helps us to end on a very positive and optimistic note. I thank you for the 4 C's and sharing those with us. How can we follow your work?
Absolutely. So please check out my website. It's maureenmichelemd.com. Michelle is spelt with one L. Or find me on Instagram, Maureen Michele MD.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I know that uh, many parents are out there. They may be at the very beginning of the journey, and I feel like you've given them enough to really get started in terms of not only directly caring for their child, but thinking ahead a little bit about how they're going to need to advocate for them, and also some self-help tips up front that at this very moment, after receiving the diagnosis, they don't really realize they need. But hopefully, they will grab your book and follow you and just realize, as you said, they are not alone on this journey. So I appreciate that so much. And to our listeners, I always appreciate you tuning in to the Parenting 411 podcast on all of your favorite platforms. Also, remember you can catch the video of this interview on my YouTube channel. Of course, that's at the Parenting 411. And of course, follow me on the social media at the Parenting 411 on Facebook and Instagram. Would love to see you there. And always remember that it's never too late to be the parent you want to be. Thank you, and I can't wait to talk to you next time.